I don't think many people remember that Samsung made dedicated cameras, and it's crazy that they slipped under the radar because they were really darn good cameras. For example, this is a Samsung mirrorless camera from 2014, the Samsung NX Mini, and it was incredibly forward-thinking in a lot of ways for the time. It had a flip-up screen for selfies, easy Wi-Fi connectivity for sharing photos on your phone. It used a simple touchscreen interface, and despite having interchangeable lenses, it was about the size of your smartphone. And actually, come to think of it, this is basically a smartphone. And that's ironic because smartphones are likely what ultimately made Samsung drop out of the mirrorless camera race. Why buy all of this if you have nearly the same thing in your smartphone already? So Samsung went all in on smartphone photography, and the rest is history. And I personally think that's a shame because over the years, Samsung made some really cool and good cameras. And I think there's a very real parallel universe out there somewhere where Samsung is competing with Sony and Canon in the casual photography market. Let's go over some of the cool things that Samsung did, and I'll show you what I mean. The cameras Samsung made most remind me of early Sony digital cameras, in that they were sometimes wild and experimental, doing stuff no other camera manufacturers were doing, while also being functional and good quality. It's a hard thing to do, apparently. Now, going back all the way in time, Samsung actually did make a few film cameras, including this late 90s SLR with their own lens mount before they hopped onto digital. And Samsung did actually release 4 DSLRs in the early 2000s, but they aren't exactly what you would expect. These DSLRs were developed alongside Pentax, a longtime film brand going digital as well, and they're essentially exactly the same camera as Pentax's IST-DL series and the K10D and the K20D cameras, with only minor differences. And that's not a bad thing. The Pentax cameras are fantastic cameras. They use the same Pentax K-mount for their lenses, and Samsung even released a few of these lenses branded under Samsung. But most of Samsung's early digital cameras were cute little point and shoots that you might remember before they started to really experiment. For example, this Samsung Pro 815 camera from 2008 had one of the largest screens on a digital camera ever, measuring 3.5 inches. But that's not even the craziest thing about the camera. It also had an EVF if you wanted to see your scene that way, or this setting screen at the top could also be switched to show a top-down live view of what you were shooting for a total of 3 live view screens. I have never seen that before on a camera. And they must have had a thing with extra screens because they also made several models of point-and-shoot cameras with front selfie screens before that was really a thing. Samsung was also the first to start experimenting with putting full-on Android onto cameras with several point-and-shoots, coming at the idea of smartphone photography, but from the other side. And the best of all their Android cameras was this large sensor Samsung Galaxy NX camera that ran Android on this large rear touchscreen. But from the front, it just looked like a DSLR. And for the most part, it also felt like one too. They also made higher-end point-and-shoots like this Samsung EX1 or TL500, which blew me away with the image quality, controls, the user interface experience. I really can't believe they didn't sell more of these because they are tough to find nowadays. But you can find them if you just know where to look. I wrote a whole free ebook about how to find and where to go to get great deals on used digital cameras. And you can check it out free in the description. One of my favorite tactics from the book is shopping where less people are looking, which is how I got this rare camera for a great deal just last week, using Bai, who sponsored this video and helped me pay for these Samsung cameras that you're gonna see later in the video. And while I box this other rare camera I bought on Bai, let me briefly explain how Bai works. Bai is a proxy shopping service for local listings in Japan. So a listing from Japan that may not appear on any other website, you can shop it on Bai. In practical terms, that means less eyeballs and potentially better deals, like this Panasonic L1 that I've really been wanting to do a video on, but they are super expensive in the US, and I got a great deal buying it from Japan on Bai. Over the years, I've bought everything from rare digital cameras exclusive to Japan to 70 pounds plus of camera gear from Bai, and I've always had a good experience. First-time shoppers save 10% by using the link in my description, so check that out, and let's check out some cool Samsung cameras. I also have to mention this unicorn of a camera, the Samsung NV9, and it uses physical gauges at the top to display battery and memory card capacity in a point-and-shoot. I've only seen 2 other cameras that do this. Samsung really tried some cool things. But the pinnacle of Samsung cameras was their NX series cameras, which were set out to compete with Sony at the time. The same year that this Samsung NX Mini was released, Samsung also released this, the Samsung NX1, their highest end camera ever. It uses a 28 megapixel backside illuminated APS-C sensor with interchangeable lenses using the Samsung NX mount. It can also shoot high quality 4K video with some pretty decent video settings in the camera. By the end of their run in 2015, Samsung had developed 18 cameras that use the NX mount and 15 of their own lenses, ranging from compact pancake lenses to pro-level portrait lenses. What strikes me as particularly interesting when using these cameras for the first time is that there's nothing inherently bad about them. In fact, they're really quite good. I thought maybe they were going to be awful, and that's why Samsung didn't sell very much and they had to stop making them, but that's not the truth. Actually, when compared to the cameras they were competing against at the time, like Sony and Canon, Samsung cameras matched or beat them on most of the features and experience. Reviewers at the time praised their big, bright, nearly lag-free screens and viewfinders, the 4K video quality, the quick autofocus. The image quality from the backside illuminated sensors were also top-notch. And after back-to-back releases of stellar cameras in the small but powerful NX Mini, the flagship NX1, and the compact NX500, Samsung cameras were in a better position than ever to take over the mirrorless camera market by storm. At this time, many photographers began taking the system more seriously, investing thousands of dollars into the cameras and the lenses, anticipating new cameras and lenses to be released, but that never happened. The rumors started circulating online when customers started noticing batteries and accessories, and then finally even cameras show up as discontinued on major retailers, still without any word from Samsung. Then a couple months later in 2016 at CES, that big electronics trade show, Samsung CEO does the whole keynote without mentioning anything about the Samsung NX line. And still to this day, I can't find any official notice from Samsung that they were discontinuing the Samsung NX line. I mean, according to them, I guess it's still there, alive and well. They just don't make them anymore. Maybe it'll come back. There's every explanation from kind of plausible ones like the ever-expanding smartphone market that kind of took out chunks of the camera industry, and even some less corroborated ones like behind-the-scenes deals with other camera manufacturers selling camera tech and then agreeing not to, go into the camera market themselves. I don't know about that one. But even still, there's a small but strong community of photographers that are still using the Samsung NX cameras, and I can see why. You've invested hundreds or thousands of dollars into their lenses and cameras, and the image quality still easily competes with the best today. And some of their cameras are still one of a kind today. Like that Samsung Galaxy NX camera that runs full on Android. I made a whole video about that here. You can check that out. I also made a video about the Samsung point and shoot, that high-end point and shoot that is really cool. That's an oldie but a goodie, so I'll leave that here as well. And until next time, as always, happy snapping.